We like that. Hey,
Hi,
Jenna.
Shanna. Got my ladies in the house. So we might not have Jamia tonight. I know she had a family emergency, so
No
she may
bueno.
not be able to join us. And Carmela's here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, Carmela.
Hi.
All right, well, let's get started. So thank you guys for joining our final Girl Talk of the year. I'm like so proud of this little panel discussion we've had. We've successfully carried out 4. The first one was the topic of feminism. And why did we start like with a heavy hitter? I don't know, but we did. That was intense. And I know we did the one about friendship. What was the middle one? I think it was the second. Oh, losing us. Woo, losing us in relationships. That was heavy too. And now we're going to talk about heartbreak. So I just feel like all of these topics are relatable, especially when you're like high-powered, successful woman and you're just trying to navigate life. And I've tried to choose topics that we could all talk on or chime in about with the hopes of helping ourselves and helping others. And so this one definitely falls into that category, you guys. I probably shared I did not want to do this topic. But I knew, those topics that were most vulnerable about, those usually have the most fruit. And so if you guys don't know this already, my name is Nicole D. Miller. I'm an author, a blogger, a speaker. I released 2 books initially on the topic of heartbreak. One is called How to Overcome Heartbreak, Recovering from Misguided Love, where I share my personal story. And then the sequel is How to Overcome Heartbreak, Stories That Heal. I interview 7 women and 4 men, and I share more from me. Both are available on my website, and I'll show you that towards the end of this segment. My latest book is Stories for the Urban Soul, a compilation of short stories, novellas, and poetry depicting Black characters, dealing with relatable life issues, infusing Black culture and faith. And I just launched the pre-sale for my debut novel, When Love Wins. You can learn more about that at whenlovewins.love. All right, so let's get started. We have our panelists here. We have Portia Booker, Secret James, Jenna Lear, Carmela Menifee. Please don't let me butcher your last name.
You did good. You did.
Okay, and they're going to be joining us on the discussion of healing from breakups. Normally, I throw out these questions, and then we do like an orderly popcorn format, where they chime in on their responses, and I give more from me. This time around, I'm going to try to be intentional about the chat. So I'm going to check the chat in the next 30 minutes. And then another 30 minutes, as well as our Facebook Live comments. And then we have a special ending with Secret James. Yes, our poet of the hour. So I'm excited about that. And just trying to learn from previous segments, we made this one a little longer because as women, we be vibing, we tend to go over. And this is a very welcoming, laid back space. So for all of you who do not know, I am a coffee, Starbucks, and red dry wine girl. So I have both, okay? And so bring your drink of choice. I do have water because I like to hydrate and not be too loosey-goosey. So feel free to partake in your beverage of choice as we share on these topics, right? So I'm going to do the random selection of, let's start with Carmela, who's a newbie to the stage, and Jenna, and then Secret, and then Portia. So that's the order. And I will share the first question. And when it's your turn to speak, you can unmute and then please mute yourself afterwards. All right. So here is the first question. How old were you when you had your first experienced heartbreak? And I should have mentioned before you just dive into the question, please give us your name, most of your business owners, your, what you do for a living, your platforms, how people can follow you and support you, and then you can chime in on the question.
Okay. So I'm Carmela Menifee. I'm a 6-time serial entrepreneur and a business coach. I have a nonprofit called Antisocial African Americans Networking Towards Innovation. I can be followed on Instagram at Antisocial Networking Group, and also on Facebook. I have a group as well, Antisocial Networking Group. So to answer your question, how old was I? I would say between 17 and 18. Do you want to know what happened or just
You
the
can
age?
share more as far as your comfort level. And if I throw out a question you're not comfortable with, you can always say pass.
Okay. So it was like between 17 and 18. And I was raised in a really religious, strict household. And my mother was married when she was 16. So we kind of formed a culture around getting married. So like everyone I dated from like from like 16 to like 23, 24, I thought they were supposed to be my husband. So I went straight in thinking that we were supposed to get married, and I did a lot of things based off of that assumption.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that you talked about the religious background. I can totally relate to that. There are many of us who had this view that the first person you date is your husband. And I love that, we have that in common for sure. All right, Jenna.
Well, okay. Well, first, thanks for hosting this. I think this is such you get more and more vulnerable the more times you do this. And I'm like, oh, do I want to chime in on this one? But yeah, no, I'm happy to be here with everyone. My name's Jenna. If you don't know me, I'm a brand strategist. I own Blue Louie Studio. And I'm on a big mission to help more women entrepreneurs create and grow their brand so that they can learn how to position themselves as the expert and attract dreamy clients. I just want to see more women leaders in the world. I think that's how we truly make a big change. And I think it starts with even conversations like this, just kind of bringing it back down to connecting in. And so, yeah, that's why I'm excited to be here for this. And for the first question, I was thinking about this and I was thinking it probably was younger, when you get your first heartbreak, when you're you think you know how to date when you're 7 or something, and you're like, I have my first boyfriend or whatever, So there's probably something that was younger, but I would say the first one that stuck out at the youngest was probably when I was around 14 or 15. And that was like a year-long, relationship when you're just getting into high school. It's kind of intense. I met his family and all of that. And much like you were sharing, previously, it's like I was gonna marry that man. That was going to be high school sweethearts, and then we're going to get married, and there's life, right? But circumstances happen, and everything happens for a reason. Sometimes it takes a long time to figure that out, though. So still learning from that first love and first heartbreak, but I would say 14, 15 is when it happened.
Man, girl, you were a baby. And I love that you said a year, because that is 4 years to a kid. I just feel like the younger you are, when you have those types of, longstanding relationships, it's even more heightened. And both you and Carmela talked about diving all in and being all in, which I can totally relate to.
Yeah. And then you add the teenage hormones and the craziness that happens when you're a teenager. And it's just whew. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, I'm going to ask this question maybe once everyone answers, but just keep this in the back of your mind. Do you think it's our personality type that makes us so serious that we're like, I'm all in, this is it, we're getting married? Or is it more that I'm like, why are we so,
Yeah. I can tell you for sure. I'm learning to be more consistent, in my business, in my life, and all of that, especially as someone who leads my own career, basically. But I'm definitely all in or all out personality type. So I think that definitely contributes based on your question, to relationships and learning from them. That's the process, right? So yeah.
Well, we'll get to that. All right. Thank you for sharing, Jenna. All right, Secret.
My first look.
Now I have an unhealthy obsession with heartbreak. So my
Mm.
first heartbreak would definitely have to be when I was 14 years old. Yeah, I was 14. Very much so unhealthy.
And were you the all-in type? We're getting married. This is happening really fast emotionally.
Yeah, you know what? It's so funny that we all have that in common because that, yeah, I was very, very much so from a very young age. That's why I said I have an unhealthy obsession with heartbreak because why am I 14 years old comparing my first name with this boy's last name? I don't even know your mom or dad. Like, I just saw you, you're cute, and we're getting married. That's all I
Thank
knew.
you.
And for those who don't know me, I am Secret. I'm co-creator of a nonprofit called Teach Peace. I am in training to become a yoga instructor, and I am a nurse.
And how long, thank you for sharing that. How long were you guys dating?
Uh, and we'll probably touch on this the further into the conversation we get, but I am a self-diagnosed serial relationshipist. So we probably weren't dating even a year.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hear from Portia on this topic.
Oh man, y'all want to let this patchy squirrel out in this human world. Okay. First of all, thanks, Nicole, for inviting me to this conversation. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Portia Booker, better known as Portia the Producer. I am your former host of Group Portia Talk Radio Show and Podcast that just finished up on WOVU after a 3-year run. Currently, I am a full-time podcast and audiobook producer, and I'm looking forward to obviously embarking more in that career. But my first heartbreak. I feel ancient compared to everybody here because my first heartbreak, and I'm ready to punch Taylor Swift because I wasn't feeling 22 when my first heartbreak happened. I definitely wasn't feeling it. My relationship was actually long distance. We met here locally in Cleveland. We both met through a mutual friend, and this person was already in the military when we met. And of course, when you're young, you think that you can make things work. There's that hope, right? I think, Nicole, to your question about our type of personality that makes us all in, I think the movies that we watch, Disney, of course, corrupted a lot of us where it's like, oh my God, our Prince Charming is here. Please hold me for dear life type of thing, right? And that was me. I mean, I was all in. When I tell you all in, I mean, I was loyal like a puppy to this relationship. And it lasted about a year. It did. So year 22, I was not feeling it, but it definitely was a learning experience for me. And truthfully, I'm still working through some stuff. I'm still definitely working through it. And even now I'm like, oh, where do we go from here? So that's me, 22.
Well, Portia, you're not alone. And I love that you said you're still working through some things, even based on that relationship, because Jenna said the same thing. I love that we're always trying to learn, that we want to learn. So I'll share. I was right behind you, Portia. I was 21 when I faced my first heartbreak, when I had my first love. We were so serious that we got engaged within months of dating and did the long distance thing while I was in school. And so we probably were together about 3 years before the initial breakup. Then we got back together for another year. How many of us do that? And then it still didn't make it, you know. And one thing I'll say is I ultimately broke up the relationship. And I have this history where I am the initiator of the breakups, but I still feel heartbroken. Like, it's not like I'm walking away, you know, happy-go-lucky. Like, I'm still like, there is a loss, there is a grieving. And so sometimes, at least for me, I've just had to make healthier choices for myself. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, to where it is, you know, a breakup. But one of the reasons I asked the age is because I don't think there is an age that people are exempt from experiencing heartbreak. I think we can experience heartbreak young, we can experience heartbreak older. I think it's such a relatable topic. Some of us may be younger than others, and I have my own theories as to how I ended up in such a serious committed relationship, which I'll tackle in a different question. But I just wanted to kind of show that, you know, it could be any age. So, but I'm seeing these commonalities of our personality types and all of those things. So what I'll ask now is, are there any red flags or things that you could look back on that relationship and see like, okay, these were the signs in him or in me or in both that it was gonna ultimately end up in a ditch? Like the relationship was not gonna make it. It was gonna crash and burn. So we'll reverse the order. And if there was a question that I said earlier that you didn't get to chime in on, you can also chime in on that too. So we'll do Portia, Secret, Jenna, and then Carmela.
Ooh, definitely I'd say red flag number one is long distance relationship right off the bat. Of course, again, like I said, when this is your first love, the first person who's like interested in you, you're interested in them, you want to make it work. You want to impress their parents. And of course you do. You make such an impression that they still keep in touch with you today, but that's for a whole nother story. I'm not going to go into that. Such an impression that the other thing I would say a lot was me. When I think back to that time, there was a lot of anger that I held on to that I was not communicating in that relationship. And as we know, anger is a secondary emotion. It's not a primary one. So there was a lot of sadness. There was a lot of depression that was masked by anger. So I wasn't communicating effectively in the relationship. I was under the impression, oh, he can read my mind. He's like a genie, you know. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. You failed the test, honey. So that was number one, was the communication. On his end, I would say the main one that I just had a little bit of a pet peeve was he wasn't motivated. That was the one thing that really got me was, yeah, you're really cute. I mean, yeah, you look like one of the Hollister models that I pulled. That's great. That's good for pictures and events. But what is that for long term? Right? I'm someone who's very long-term focused, not temporary. So I would say those are the main two. A lot of it was me. When I look back on that, I had a lot of work to do, but at the same time, I wasn't ready to address it. I'm a firm believer that things that are unhealed will soon be revealed. And that's what really occurred, that kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back on my end.
Thank you for sharing, Portia. Another question was going to be, was it all their fault or your fault? So if anyone else wants to kind of piggyback on that too, feel free. Go ahead, Secret.
So I definitely will say that I overlooked a lot of red flags. Like, I'm one of those people who go around with the love goggles on heavily. I know that there's things that I don't like. You know, when you get that first initial twinge of like, ooh, I don't really like that, but nah, I'm just gonna play it off to the side for now. So there were definitely a lot of red flags with everyone that I've ever dated, you know, that didn't end well, or we are obviously aren't together now because I'm single. So two things though that I know for a fact that I can just put together with any guy that I've been with is communication. Communication has always been a huge red flag, and not just the normal communication that we women desire, because men communicate way differently than us, but just in general, that saying he's just not into you goes a long way when it comes with communication. Because if a guy is really truly interested in you, he wants to know about you, he wants to know what you're doing. What I would be doing though is asking all the questions. How's your day? What do you like? All these things, but they would never ask me. So that's a red flag now. Like, whenever I'm talking to someone and I notice that I'm the one initiating the interesting, thought piquing questions, I kind of like, okay, I'm gonna fall back. And then another red flag is just actions. Like, I feel, me personally, and it probably loops into communication all over again, but I feel like if you can go an entire 24 hours and never say anything to me, have no communication with me, none whatsoever, that is a red flag to me, because no one is that busy. Everyone picks up their phone at least one time a day and scroll social media. So if you can scroll social media one time a day, you can text me and say, hey, how you doing? So those are my two red flags. And then for your piggyback question, I guess it would have to be the relationship. It depends on which relationship. But honestly, me being who I am now, I would definitely say I was the reason. I was the reason because I've always been the person who held on too long. I've always been the person who overlooked things. And I've always been the person who lowered my standards for the sake of love. So I would take all the blame.
Girl, you said a mouthful. I'm over here taking notes. Okay. And I definitely resonate with, the narcissism, when you come across someone, they don't ask you a thing about you. It's all about them. I have spent hours on the phone listening to men talk about them. So, but I'm gonna wait and share my thing later. Go ahead, Jenna.
Oh, I feel like that could be a whole topic, just a whole hour-long discussion in of itself. But yeah, so the question being, can you repeat the question for me?
So it was, do you see any red flags earlier in the relationship that alluded to it crashing and burning? And was it all on them, or was there any folly in you?
Yeah. So because the one that I've shared and I've referenced happened so young, 14, 15, I think there's a general reflection of just immaturity and emotional immaturity, not saying it wasn't real or the things that, happened weren't valid, or, when they say you're too young to know what love is, or whatever that is, like you said, I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I look back and I think, wow, the woman I've grown into and what I want and what I see for my life, there's no way I could have gauged that young and seen that young. And so, I learned a lot from that. And also, I'm so grateful that it crashed and burned, because the red flag was emotional immaturity. And I think that that's still relevant in my 30s, right? That's one of the things I look for is do you have emotional intelligence? And because I'm working on that for myself too, so yeah, so that's what I'll say about red flags for that particular relationship. And was it all them? Was it all me? That particular relationship, we kind of grew together through high school, and then he went off into the army, and, we stayed connected, and it fizzled out because of a lot of different things, just life and growth, and, those pivotal moments where you're making a lot of big decisions. But yeah, so I'd say it's on both of us, but.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So I would say that a red flag was he was very manipulative. So because he knew that I ultimately was focused on marriage, he would use that to get the things that he wanted. So he would be like, we're going to get married, but you need to do this, this, and this. And it was like that for a long time. It was always after this, then this, and he used that repeatedly. So definitely manipulative. And then I also would agree with lack of emotional intelligence. I would have to definitely agree with that. And I can say that on both parts, but on his part, he went through a lot of trauma himself. And I can recognize that, looking back today, and he used it. He was going through a lot of stuff, and he used the opportunity of me wanting to marry him as a way to get up, himself. So he was young, but he had purchased a house. And so he's like, well, you have to put money into the house, and then we're going to get married, because I don't want my wife coming home to a house that's not, completed. It'll be things like that. So, and like I said, he was going through trauma himself. So he had never really owned anything. We were young, but just as far as toys, things like that, period. He never had anything to himself, his own bedroom, things like that. So he used that opportunity to get the things that he felt he needed for himself. And then he included me by using what I wanted to gain a win as well. So when you say, was it all him or all me, I would say that we both went through a lot at a young age. And it definitely impacted both of us. But the fact that he was so willing to win at the sacrifice of me, I would have to say, that ultimately ended us in our relationship. But on my end, I had to be more responsible with my needs rather than feeling somebody else should be responsible on providing what I needed.
Girl, you said a mouthful. Okay, you said he was willing to win at the sacrifice of me. I'm like, oh my God, that just hit me for sure. That's so perceptive of you to understand that. And then the last statement, as far as not leaning on someone else to be responsible for you, but taking full responsibility of yourself. I can definitely relate in more recent experiences with that manipulation. That's called economic abuse. I just learned that term when he was trying to get you to invest in this property that's his responsibility. He's trying to obtain authority over your finances, basically. Girl, I'm glad you got out. All right, so what's on me? So looking at the earlier relationship, I definitely know the red flags now, but as a teenager, we met when I was 17. I didn't know, but definitely unhealed trauma on his part and on my part as well. And for him, I would say, a rougher background, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I just think when you don't deal with the issues that come with that, and he had no idea at the time. So that was huge. For me, I would say daddy issues all day. I had no idea, of course, that I was walking around here feeling rejected, abandoned, and needing love, and then gonna put that all on you, so that was a hot mess and still working through those, but at least I'm aware. So I can definitely see that. I definitely relate to Secret when, I have these rose-colored glasses. One of my best friends, who's on here, has told me for years, like, I look at everybody and I'm like, oh, they have a good heart. He has a good heart, and I'd be looking at everybody's hearts, and now I'm like, Nicole, they are still a hot mess. Like, so I'm still learning how to look at a person's function and thinking. That's another thing I've learned recently, not necessarily their heart. And because I have a quote unquote good heart, I'm like projecting that onto them. So yes, someone could be, well-intentioned, but they're dysfunctional. And so some of my own stuff that I really had to grow in and learn in, even in my early 30s, was my own dysfunction, being codependent, losing myself in that relationship, having that tendency, which I know Carmela touched on as well. Well, you guys we're going deep. This is what we do, get comfortable. So the next question I want to ask is, what are some unhealthy responses that you've had to heartbreak when the ish hit the fan? And what are some healthy responses you've had? And let's mix up the order. Let's go with Jenna, Portia, Carmela, and then Secret.
Yeah, unhealthy responses. I mean, I will own this one. I am an emotional eater. So like unhealthy response to breakup is like, give me the chocolate, give me anything with bread in it, and like letting myself have that, but then also not like limiting it, right? As I'm like healing. And I think it's kind of like you look for things to fill the void. And that was definitely something that I've struggled with. On the healthy side of things, I think it's always like I don't know why I fight it. I don't know if any of you feel this way, but like I have an internal struggle of like getting to the gym or doing something physical. But once I'm there, I'm like, oh, I love this. I'm all in. I'm addicted, right? But I'm like, I just fight myself tooth and nail to like actually do the thing. But I'd say once I do get there, like gym class, basketball, whatever it is, then, moving my body and kind of getting the energy shifted and out, so I can let new energy in. So I would say that's like the healthy response. And I feel like those kind of fit in the cliche, but, here we are. So.
Thank you for your transparency.
Ooh, I didn't want to answer this question, but I am somebody who is abnormally strong. So I used to punch holes in things. I used to take out my anger physically because that's the only way I knew how. And of course, I grew up kind of seeing that in a sense. So taking it out in a physical way, punching things at work, having angry outbursts with people at work because I'm suppressing those emotions. Another thing that I did was, of course, me and my person, we met through a mutual friend. So I'm venting to this friend and putting them in an awkward position. And it's like, I think at one point they kind of got tired of it. And I didn't realize, like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this. This puts them in an awkward position with me and them, because what are they saying to them that they're not saying to me, and vice versa? So that was strike number two. I would say, in a healthy sense, what really helped me was really rekindling my passion for writing. Like, journaling is probably the most therapeutic thing that you can do when you're going through grief, when you're going through heartbreak, because you really get to get those emotions out. And I'm somebody, y'all, when I journal, I'm literally like in my book, just the pen is going, handwriting is sloppy, but guess what? It puts me right back to sleep instead of being up all night from insomnia. So it's like I'm literally dumping everything. And I've literally found myself even coming to epiphanies and realizations like, oh, I should have handled this better. So if I would have taken more time to put the pen first instead of my fist to everything, then things could have been a little bit better. So writing has definitely been it, kind of like with you, Jenna. Walking has always been my thing, getting out of my own head, spending time with friends, forcing myself into a space of with people, a support system where your mind isn't thinking about that. You know, you got to like distract yourself from, because it'll consume you. It's like a hamster wheel of shame that you'll become a prisoner of. So that was my way of, in a healthy sense, dealing with heartbreak.
I appreciate you sharing that. I know your handwriting is always beautiful, so I don't buy that line about it being sloppy. But of course, I'm a writer, so I'm all about that. And do you know they have those are they rave rooms, rage rooms? What are those rooms called? Rave rooms. I know someone that
It's
went
a rage room. Yeah.
rage rooms. Thank you. I know someone that went after a breakup, and it helped a lot. So they do have the aggressive outlets that you would be looking for.
Yay.
I would say for myself, I used to repaint, after a breakup, I just wanted to honestly, I did it emotionally as well as physically. So I'll like redecorate the house and things like that. But emotionally, I want to repaint. I want to bring somebody else in like almost immediately and build something with them like where it left off. Like, so I've had a lot of long-term relationships, but they were like back to back originally because I didn't want to sit in my emotions. I didn't want to sit in a heartbreak. I didn't want to deal with the heartbreak. I'm just like, okay, I thought that this was going to happen with this person. It didn't happen. Let me try this person over here. And that was, of course, very unhealthy for me, even though I may have gotten another long-term relationship out of that. At some point, I had to sit with it, and that was the healthy part, being able to sit in it, being able to acknowledge how I felt, being able to sit with what I did wrong and take it and evaluate the situation and how I could do things differently next time rather than just bringing somebody else in automatically.
I love that you touched on the creativity, another aspect of creativity with the repainting, interior design, and that you talked about being a serial dater where you're not dealing with your brokenness and then you're just carrying the same you into the next one and running from that pain. I definitely feel like, and I'm trying not to is it my turn? No, we got secrets, so I'm not going to get on to this, but I can relate to that for sure after the loss of my mom. Go ahead, Secret.
You could have taken your time. It is no rush. But you know what? I'm a yeller. That is my very toxic trait. Well, not anymore, but I was a very big yeller. And first I want to address this because everyone said it. We were all angry. Anger is an emotion, and I feel like women don't ever take the time to acknowledge that anger is an emotion and we have to find a way to get past that emotion. Versus men, everything is physical and more masculine with them. So anger is a natural emotion for them. So that's something that they can work through easily. But you know what they can't work through? Happiness, love, They can't work through those feminine emotions. So that was something I was thinking about when Portia was talking. But mine was yelling because that was my anger. And I was yelling because I felt unseen. So if I felt like if I yelled louder, then you can hear me. And eventually, if you heard how hurt I was, then you would be able to see my pain and feel me. That was not true. It just made you shut off because men don't listen to yelling. But that was my unhealthy thing that I would do. Now, my healthy thing that I do now is yoga. I meditate, I do yoga, and honestly, I kind of just got used to being with self. I'm very much so the person who would go right into another relationship instantly. Like, oh, maybe about a week have passed and I'm already, the next day I'm probably trying to find somebody because that hurt is so unsettling to sit with. And if you don't sit in it, you end up doing the same thing. You keep having the same consistent toxic traits. And I did not realize that until my recent breakup. He hopped into another relationship like maybe 3 weeks later. And I was like, what? And it was at that moment that I was like, I can't even judge you because that's probably something I would have done.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. My very first breakup that happened after the second breakup. So we've been together 4 years, engaged for most of that time. And he literally jumped into another relationship and got married within 4 months. So here we are engaged for several years. And right after you get married, I was devastated. So it was like grieving all over again. I definitely resonate with the whole not wanting to experience the pain. I think for most of my breakups, I have let myself go through these processes because there is a part of me that knows like you ain't getting out of it. It was definitely after my mom's passing where I just could not, and I'm running because mostly I didn't want to deal with the grief of that. So I used relationships as an escape. What was the question? I remember. I want to ask. Oh, was it the healthy ways of dealing with it? Okay, so healthy ways, writing, like you guys said, and exercise for sure, especially after my mom's passing, but even around that time. I remember one of the breakups I had, I did a kickboxing class. Boxing was great. And like Secret talked about the anger, like letting yourself experience anger and release it in a healthy way. So that was really good for me. She also talked about sitting with self. I'm just a naturally like reflective person, deep person. So I'm more of an introvert and I like to, just write and pray and meditate and be in that space. But sometimes when you're hurting so bad, it's scary, and it can be easier to run into something without sitting there. So I think you're brave when you choose to sit with yourself, especially if you walked out a long time of singleness. I have, some of my friends have. So you're just kind of like, oh no, not back to the dry spell, but just believing that you're going to be healthier on the other side of that. What are some unhealthy ways? So the very first relationship breakup that devastated me, I was away at college, so it was long distance, and I literally was an RA at my dorm, which means I oversaw the residents, and I was on duty, which means I couldn't leave the building. And I just was like, I'm going to Cleveland. And so I ended up talking to one of my fellow RAs. He gave me his car. I just think this was Jesus. Because I'm like, what? He gives me his car. He takes over my shift. Me and my best friend roll down the highway. And my ex is supposed to be going out with some chick. And I'm like, you gonna give me my time? Like rolling down the highway with my best friend, 4.5-hour drive. And I tried to punch his lights out. I remember, and I'm not a violent person, you guys, but like they will take you out of your character. And so they had to hold me back, my best friend and her boyfriend at the time. And I still kind of, part of me is like, I just wish I could have got one hit, but whatever. We ended up talking all night. So that was very unhealthy. I just like flung aside all my responsibilities. It's just like, emotional, but hey, at least I got it out. One of the things I know Portia touched on was community. Can you guys talk about that. Is there a support team that you've had in your grief process, your recovery of healing from heartbreak? Who are some of the key, mentors, resources, groups that have helped you guys? So we can start with Carmela, and then Secret, and then Portia, and then Jenna.
I would definitely say counseling. When I was much younger, I seen seeking out counseling as a negative image, but as I get older, I see how necessary it is. And I'm also a counselor as well, so that probably helped. But I see how necessary it is to get those feelings out, to be able to have a space dedicated to getting those feelings out, being heard, having your feelings acknowledged and feeling like they're valid. Like all that is important. But if I was to say a person outside of counseling, outside of my counselor, I would say my godmom. My godmom, I can talk to her about anything and everything. It don't matter what it is. She's not going to judge it. And she just give me space to talk. She's not always looking for something to say in return or to give me advice, but she allows me to just pour out into her and come up with my own definition of happiness or resolution. And that's very important for me.
Thank you for reminding us about counseling. So important.
So mine was, I did everything. No, I did everything. I did therapy. But you know what's crazy is the person who helped me through my heartbreak the most out of everyone was his mother.
Wow.
It was, yeah, that was probably one of the most different experiences, because I had came from a relationship where the mother was a horrible person. And usually moms ride for their sons, but this one, she knew, and she had that healthy balance of understanding that, yeah, this is my son, but I'm a woman first. And I've been through it. And she would tell it to me all the time. Literally, this woman would pray for me. She would call me on the phone every single day and check up on me. She would text me every single morning, every single night, just reassuring me. And I mean, I don't even know if it wasn't for her, I will hands down say that if it wasn't for that woman, I would not be who I am today. So I'm very grateful for her.
Girl, that is so powerful. I love that. That's beautiful.
Is it me or Jenna? Is it me? I think it is. I don't remember who it is. I'll go, Jenna. I'll go. We'll save the best for last. Ooh, I would say similar to Carmela, I've been through a series of therapists, but I'm thankful for the one that I do have now, who has definitely made a profound impact on my life. The very first thing that she had me do, like, transparent moment, I used to go to my mom. I knew it was going to happen. My mom was definitely my person who I would go to for everything. And my mom made her transition this year in July. And so I've had to pivot as to who I go to as a safe space. So my therapist definitely was one who I met this year. Number two person is my soul mom, Dawn. I can run to her for anything. She has that like unconditional love, like literally that love that you see in movies where the panda just picks up the little baby and just hugs them like this. That's literally what I get from her. The other thing was time. I had to give myself time away from relationships, time with myself. And I mean deep healing time, like really getting to the root of me, really asking those questions like, Portia, is this really necessary? Do you still need to hold on to this? How long is this serving you, right? So I had to give myself time. And I can honestly say the time that I gave, I can see the difference now, because me and my ex are friends. We actually wished each other happy birthday last year. And the fact that I saw him this year and I thanked him for saving my life when I was really struggling mentally a few years ago. So that already told me that time that I gave myself was necessary in order to really find comfort and find healing. And the last thing was praying. God, God really had to bring me down several notches. Like, Portia, I know you're a fire starter, but geez, my child, can you listen and be still, you stubborn one? So he really had to work on my heart, and I'm grateful that I surrendered and was open to it. So
Thank you, Portia. And I'm so glad that you were able to find other mentors in your mom's transition. I definitely have that experience as well. Jenna?
My internet cut out, so I think I missed the question.
Oh, what are some mentors, community members, other resources that have aided you in healing from heartbreak? And we've
Okay.
heard, I don't know if you heard Carmela, she talks about counseling, Secret, her ex's mom. Portia had other, female mentors in her life.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I've known this, but I don't know if I've ever said this out loud. Every kind of like serious relationship and heartbreak that has come after, there was some kind of mom there. It wasn't always my mom. So, I had a similar experience to, I think, Secret, you were sharing, like the heartbreak back when at 14, 15, it was his mom that was there for me. And so much so that they always looked after me. They invited me out to go stay with them in Norway. That was my first European trip. Like, it was kind of crazy. Like, the bond that was built there with his family, even though him and I weren't together anymore. And I had something similar after that. His mom, there were times in my life where I was borderline homeless when I was in high school. And so his mom at the time, that relationship took me in, saw me, and just like poured into me and nurtured what she could. And even though him and I weren't together again, and it's like, I look back and I see these mother figures that weren't necessarily my own, and my own coming into the picture at different times too. And just how grateful I am for women to be able to see the whole woman, I'm a woman first piece. Like, that's really beautiful to be able to see, look back and see that those moms saw that too, and how that impacted me and how I'm able to nurture. Yeah, it's kind of crazy cool, I guess.
I think that's a whole nother level of maturity for a mom to see the flaws in her son and be like, you wrong, let me tend to this one, All right, so I'll share. I definitely feel like I had a tribe, and I've had a tribe ever since. So around that time, I became a part of a fellowship group. One of the ladies became a spiritual mom. She's probably the first spiritual mom I ever had. And it was just time for me to heal and grieve. I didn't even have a 9-to-5 yet because I was fresh out of college. I couldn't get a job, but I immersed myself in ministry, in projects, in community. And those people came around me, prayed for me, encouraged me, strengthened me. And I didn't ask you guys this, but for me, it took about 4 years to heal. That is just how like jacked up I was. It took about as long as a relationship was. That's how long it took for me to heal. And it was one step at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time of rebuilding myself, because I didn't know my identity. I was so young. So I had to learn my identity outside of that relationship and learn what my dreams were and what my purpose was and what my calling was. But I thank God for those people, people being used who are just love with skin on, that was so huge for me. And then of course my spirituality, and then doing a deep reflection and deep dive of my own issues that led me into that and working on those things as well. The interesting thing is I wrote the book, How to Overcome Heartbreak, where I basically share my story, and other people have read that and have reached out and talked about it helping them. One person in particular shared that she couldn't find many resources like on heartbreak. And so I thought that was very interesting, that there aren't enough books out there that could kind of aid you in that. But that was huge for me. It was definitely community. So the next question is like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned from these breakups? And we've kind of touched on that a little bit, but how have you grown? How are you still growing? How do you want to grow? What are some of the things that stand out to you that you can glean and take into your next relationship? So let's start with Secret, and then through Jenna and Portia, and then Carmela.
So it's so ironic because my first heartbreak was when I was 14. My greatest heartbreak was when I was 28. I'll be 30 next year. So awkwardly, even though that was my toughest heartbreak, and I'm still healing from that one too, um, I gained so much in that relationship, so much so to the point that I'm grateful for that heartbreak because one, that was the heartbreak that made me decide, all right, I'm about to stop this cycle. I need to go heal. Two, that was the heartbreak that actually helped me see the version of me that everyone else would be able to see, but I would not be able to see at all. Like I have a best friend that my entire life, we've been best friends since we were 14 years old. She would say, I wish you could see the you that I see. And I would be like, what? I'm just regular. And I would literally go every day of my life for the past 15 years saying, I'm just regular. I'm just regular. And now I'm at the point where I can finally see the me that she's been seeing for so many years. And it's because that breakup in that relationship.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, two things kind of come to mind with that question. And with every kind of breakup, especially my most recent, relationships, um, it's a question to like, well, do I still find the worth and the value and the love in myself? Like, do I see that for myself? And how can I make sure I'm nurturing that relationship first with me, from me to me, right? And the self-love piece. And so, I've kind of been on this self-love journey the last couple of years as a result. Um, and I think one of the biggest things that's so beautiful that comes from breakup is like learning what doesn't work for you and setting your boundaries and being healthy in that, not looking past the red flags the next time, and being like, you might like be great on this side, but there's a couple of things that actually will not work for me. And so let's be friends, right? And how beautiful it is to say, okay, I love myself and I respect myself enough to be able to like let this potential pass because I've set those boundaries. So I think that's some of the lessons I've learned.
That's good.
I'd say for me, when I think of the word heartbreak, to me, heartbreak is a more concrete description of grief. Truthfully, when you think about it, it's a more concrete way of saying I'm grieving. But in terms of, obviously, there's a love that has nowhere to go. It's love without direction. What I would say I've learned, number one, from all three of my relationships is life is too short. Life is too short to be unhappy. Number two, similar to you, Jenna, self-love. I have to build that relationship with me in order to have somebody to love me the way that I desire. How can I communicate that love if I can't even communicate it with me? Right. So I've been on kind of a self-love journey for the last 7 years. I've been riding solo and I've enjoyed the journey so far. I mean, I took myself on a date for the first time this week. That already shows my growth when I was like, nope, I'm not interested in dating. Nope, the shop's closed, foreclosure. No, 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 nothing. The fact that I'm already open to that level of love already tells me that that person, whoever it is that's going to come into my life, is going to come in at the right time because I'm already showing up as the person I want to be loved as. And I would say the last thing is that time. Give things time. Everything is not a quick fixer upper like it appears to be on social media these days. One day you're having a good time, then you break up, then you're back together. No, it doesn't work like that with heartbreak. Heartbreak is an independent journey. My mom had a saying that it takes you just the amount of time or longer away from that person to truly start to heal from the heartbreak. And my mom was so right. I mean, even though me and the person who I love, were together for a year and some change. It took me all the way until last year to really notice that I forgave them, and the fact that I was able to say, you know what, as long as they're happy, I'm happy. And that already showed me the level of maturity and growth that I've done on myself. Is you have to be able to wish them the same level of happiness that you want in order to truly attract what you want.
That's good. Your mom was a smart woman.
I would say for my younger self, the greatest lesson I learned was, like I stated, I have to be responsible for my own life, my own happiness, and what happens to me. Um, and as I went on into adulthood, I had to recognize the trauma that happened to me that allowed me to want to take the back seat in my life. When I was 4, I had pneumonia. I had tubes stuffed down my throat for probably about 4 months. And I had to learn how to speak all over again after this occurred. And in learning how to speak, I had a speech impediment. So I had a sister that was 13 months older than me. So I wanted her to speak for me. I would whisper in her ear. This is a true story. I would whisper in her ear, and she would say whatever I needed to say out loud. And that went on for years. And it felt safe. That felt safe to me. I didn't have to worry about the ridicule of me speaking and people saying, oh, you sound like a baby and, whatever. So that happened for years. And then we grew apart, like we grew older and we started doing our own thing. But then that started showing up in my relationships. I wanted to play the background. I didn't want to have to make the decisions of what happened. So I got in relationships where the people were controlling. And although I didn't like what it felt like, I was attracted to those type of people because it allowed me to take that back seat. So I had to recognize that. And then I had to decide what do I want to do about it? One, and I want to speak. I want to be heard. I want to say what I want, and I want to put what I want into action, and I want to be heard. I want to speak loud. I want to live loud, and I had to take steps towards that for my life.
Powerful, Carmela. I mean, just thank you for being vulnerable to share that with us. That is so powerful. And I'm so proud of the woman that you've become and what you've overcome. Amazing.
Thank you.
So I can definitely resonate. Some of the more recent lessons I've learned, kind of what Jenna was talking about as far as not rushing in. I'm just a romantic, I'm a lover. I think God showed me, like, I was raised on love. I'm surrounded in this community of love. So I just be wanting to love, especially in my relationships. However, people have to be in a healthy space to receive that. And so for me, I need to look more at a person's core values, belief systems, more of the cerebral aspect of things. It's like I wear my cerebral hat when I'm working and I'm in boss mode. But when it comes to like relationship mode, I'm mush, So I definitely have to learn more to look at more of the logical side of things and not be so easily swayed with my emotions. And I'm thankful for the journey God has had me on, because he be revealing every experience that I've had a dream. I mean, it just be manifesting and he be letting me know ahead of time something's up. So I'm grateful for that spiritual protection. I'm grateful for my community. And I think that's something that I would like to ask you guys too, is did you invite people into your relationship? I think sometimes when we're dating, we're booed up. And so there's things that we can sweep under the rug or we're not seeing because we don't have other eyes that don't have the rose-colored glasses, lovey-dovey glasses on, and I would say I definitely haven't had that experience of really having community involved in a relationship. I think I took a long time out from dating. And when I jumped back in, I can't say that I really had people all up in it. They knew of my partners, but I didn't have people around them. And one of the flags to me was with some of them was that they didn't have people around them. Like they didn't have community. And that is definitely a flag to me, because I just feel like we are not independent people. We can't fully heal, I don't think, without other people. So can you guys look back and see that you had people that were involved in the relationship? And if you had people, do you think that could have kept you from heartbreak? I guess we'll start with Jenna, and then Carmela, and then Secret, and then Portia.
Yeah, I don't like, what's coming up for me is like, I'm not quite sure, but what I can say is that, because I'm still processing what you're sharing and what you're asking. But what popped up for me that I will share is that is a red flag for me when there's no one else around, right? Like to be able to be exposed to their community and I'm exposed to, I think that's an important part because, like you said, and to
Hear us, Jenna? It
you,
sounds
I
like
think
a
could be
connection.
healthy. Oh no.
Can you hear us? Okay, you're back. Okay, repeat what you
I
said.
can hear you. Okay. Oh no, sorry. Okay, no, what was popping up for me was to keep it short and sweet. Don't you hate that when you like send a voice message or something and then it just all goes away? Okay, so what was popping up for me is like, that's actually a red flag when they have no community around them and there's, then my community is not meeting them or all of them, because like you said, we're not meant to be solo. And so I think it's important for you to share, your groups with each other, have the boundaries, right? But also like, I think that's how you get to know someone too. And I don't know if that's fully what you're asking, but that's what popped up for me. So
Can you look back and see that you had community involved in your relationships that led to heartbreak?
I think there was community involved in some of the relationships that kept it from heartbreak. And then I look back and I see some relationships where everything was really just like, it's you and me against the world. And it's like, that's not quite healthy. Where's our tribe? Where's our community? And how could they help us maybe see outside of ourselves in order to, avoid the impending like iceberg that's right there, if you will, so that's how I kind of see it at this point, looking at emotional intelligence. Back to that point, it's like there gets to be people around. I don't think that they get to have as much influence, but they get to be around,
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to the being in a relationship and feeling like it's me and you against the world. I can, like, it always was like that way. Like all the relationships I think back to, it was always that way. We kind of built our own life with just us. And like for holidays and stuff, we'll go see our family and stuff like that. But predominantly, it was just us. And I would say that created unhealthy habits because it made it feel like there's no one else. There's no one else to talk to. There's no one else to turn to. So I probably stayed in relationships a lot longer feeling that way. So looking back, I think it's important because the way people show up to you, if you don't see how they do in other relationships, how they handle conflict in other relationships and things like that, you're sheltered from who they truly are. So I think that being able to see how they interact with other people, the dynamic of their other relationships is important.
See, we got counselor Carmela tonight. I'm taking notes. I'm appreciating it. Free counseling.
I think it's your secret. Yeah.
Yes. So for me, okay, so in my adulthood, I haven't had very many serious relationships. I've only had two, and they were both polar opposite relationships. So in the first one, he had way too much going on. Like it was way too many hands in the pot, but they were all biased because they were all his family. And he came from a family of all women and just a handful of men. And when they're in those kind of families, the women tend to not so much, they become mama bears, all of them though. So it was literally like this huge family with all these women that were always in his ear and not giving him good tea to sip on. Versus the last relationship, also not a lot of men, a lot of females. It was a totally different type of aspect, but in both relationships, I never had a community. And I never had a community because I would be embarrassed. I wouldn't want people to know what truly was going on in the relationship because I still loved them. I knew I wasn't going to leave. But if I tell you, then you're going to give me your unbiased opinion. I mean, I'm sorry, you're going to give me your overly biased opinion because you're my person, you're on my side. And so, what I will always tend to do is seek someone from their side to be my person, which was always my downfall. Like, I will always seek someone from their side to be the person that I would go and talk to them about, or, I would just cling to this person. In both situations, it has always went wrong. Like, it went left in both ways. I do feel like, though, if we had the community of people who knew even an inch of what love was about, it would have been a different outcome, because you have to think that we're coming from, especially in Cleveland. I'm not from here. So coming to Cleveland, moving to Cleveland, learning the people has been a very different experience for me. They're not so friendly, but that's one. They're not very friendly people. But a lot of people, from what I've learned, have never been out of Cleveland. And they only have this perception of perfection from what is in Cleveland. They have not been anywhere else. They haven't even been out of the state, let alone out of the country. So they don't have diversity in what love really is. If these are the only people that are around you that are giving you advice and telling you how you should love someone or how you should be loved, in some sense of the way, you're going to get steered wrong. And that has always been my issue when I dealt with men. They never had people in their arena that were going to steer them down the right path. And then me, I just never had people because I just never opened up, because I know my people love me. I know they're going to give me, they're going to give me something good to eat on, or they're going to feed me to an extent. But if it's consistent, they're going to be like, all right, we're done talking to you now. We've told you, you don't want to listen. Now you got to bump your head. So I do feel like a community is necessary, but I feel like it has to be the right community. And sometimes it doesn't have to be your family. Like I said, the last relationship, my community was not my family. Like, they were friends or people that I may have met, people that I grew and met maybe through him, but they were not family on both sides.
Thank you for sharing. I definitely believe that caveat is it has to be a healthy community, right? Like healthy people that know true love that can help guide you. I hope you're finding a healthy community here in Cleveland. We are here, we may be the minority, but we're here.
Ooh, I have kind of a little bit of a different approach with this, Nicole, because I'll be honest, I have been someone who has never really fit in for a long time. It took me, I've always been a loner, even in high school. I've always been a lone wolf because of the way I saw the world. I couldn't really relate to people. So when you think about community at that time, the friends that I had, I kind of kept them safeguarded in a closet. I'm like, no, these are my friends. You can't meet them. No, I don't want you to try to talk to my friends. You're supposed to be with me, right? So that's unhealthy thinking, sense of abandonment type of situation. And so now, fast forward to today, I'm glad that this was brought up, because now when I think back to that time, I'm thinking if I did potentially have a role model community, whether it was through a church group or several friends who were in healthy relationships, maybe it would have saved me from heartbreak. Maybe it wouldn't have. But then again, I'm a firm believer that every situation or event in your life is a lesson, whether it's in your favor or not. So I'm thinking if I did, I would have learned something from it either way. But at that time, my friends are my friends, your friends are yours. And it's just us. This is us. The rest of the world is excluded.
Us against the world.
100%.
Yeah. I can say the very first heartbreak I had, community didn't come in until a year into our relationship. And by then we were known as that couple. So it was like, y'all not gonna tell us nothing. Like, and we were all young and immature and didn't really know what healthy love was anyways. So in my later years, like I said, I didn't really have community involved, even though they knew my dating partners. But I definitely think that I could see how I would protect the person I'm with if I'm seeing flags, and I may not share that with my community because I'm like, oh shoot, like this looks like it's about to be a hot mess. And I don't know if I'm ready to leave it, or I don't know if I'm ready to let this go right now, And so I could see that rising up in me where I'm like, let me just see if I can ride this out. Like, sometimes I think we can hide those things from our community, which is unhealthy, but we're human. It happens. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to throw out our last question for the evening. Thank you guys so much for just being willing to share and be transparent. So the last question is, sorry, I lost it. Oh, what would you tell your younger self concerning heartbreak? And what advice would you give to others? So it's two-part question. So let's start with Portia, then Carmela, and then Secret. And I know Jenna had to leave.
So what advice would I give my younger self about heartbreak? I would say number one, it's going to happen. Flat out. It's going to happen at some point. The one thing to always remember is you're not broken. You're not broken just because somebody broke your heart. Just remember that. Time will heal. You just have to give it time and find a way to redirect that love. Learn a lesson from the situation and the event and cry. You have to cry. Like, that was something I can honestly say during my heartbreak I did not do. I suppressed it, and my significant other told me he didn't like to see me cry. So I suppressed it. And even to this day, I have to give myself permission. Well, now it's been the Waterworks show because of my mom's transition, but I had to give myself permission. The thing that I would say, what was the other part, Nicole? What was the other part too?
What advice would you give to others with healing?
Time. Give yourself time. Healing will take place, but you have to be open and do the deep work. I gotta say, do the deep work, because at times when we are in heartbreak, we tend to do, well, because of this, because of that, because of pointing the finger. But again, we have to go within and really get to the root of a lot of things. I'm a firm believer that what's unhealed has to be revealed. So do the deep work, reflect, journal, and really redirect that love. Learn to love yourself in the way that you want someone else to love you. I'm Portia, the producer.
Okay, Portia, the producer.
I would definitely say grow with it. GROW, grow with it. No matter what happens, I had to tell myself, like, as long as you're growing, it's okay. Like, you're going to need certain things to happen to you in order to grow, in order to give yourself enough room to grow. Like, things are going to have to happen. So something I would tell other people is something that I heard, and it's fail forward. Like, if you fail forward. And that goes with growing. If you're failing at something, it's going to show you which ways not to do it again, and you need that. You need that to be able to get clarity, to be able to evaluate what you did in relationship, what they did, or anything, period. Like, evaluation is the best way and reflection is the best way to learn from anything that happened, So that's what I would say.
And I knew we was going to get some good counseling nuggets, so I was excited for you to share.
Okay, so the advice that I would give my younger self, I would tell my younger self to heal, like to deeply, deeply, deeply heal in every sense of the way, not the, the cool way that everyone has made it out to be. No, like truly look yourself in the face, acknowledge every single part of whatever has hurt you and deal with it. Like, don't sweep it under the rug. Don't go get with somebody else. Don't go vent to your friends because that's not going to make it feel better. They're going to hype you up to do something stupid. And they have. But truly, truly sit with it. Like, sit with yourself. I was afraid of being alone for a very long time. I don't know why, but at 14, I was afraid of being alone. Why am I afraid of being alone at 14? So it's like, sit with that. Sit with yourself and be alone. Now I love isolation. I could just be here with my cat all day. And then what advice that I do give to others is vent. Like, don't hold it in. Don't vent, but vent healthy. Don't vent on social media. Don't vent for attention, but vent so that you can get the feelings out so they don't swirl around in your head. Let it out. The quicker you let it out, the quicker you can let it go, and the easier it'll be to move on.
That's good. Sit with yourself. That's good. So we have our other panelist, Jamia Lewis, who has joined us, and she's going to piggyback on this question. The question was, what advice would you give to your younger self concerning heartbreak and give to others? And then you can also share like your organization, your occupation, your social media handles, how people can support you.
Thanks so much, Nicole. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this panel, particularly, and Nicole would know, as she is someone that I vent to on a regular basis. But just in the midst of multiple heartbreaks right now myself. So across different what's the word I'm looking for, different facets of life. And so not just in regards to relationships, but just also other things that happen in this life we live where, things happen that break our hearts. So advice to my younger self. I think advice to my younger self in dealing with the broken heart would be, this is not going to consume you. I think that when you are feeling just that pain of heartbreak, whether that's a result of rejection or of losing someone close to you, or or losing a job, like anything that can pierce our hearts. When you are in that space, it is hard to think of anything else, like that pain, the pain of initial heartbreak is pretty acute, so it's felt, it's sharp, and that's all you can think of. That's all you can think of in the moment. And so I guess I would say, like, this is not going to consume you. Like, your end is not going to be right here in this place where you are hurting this badly. And there's a specific scripture reference that comes to mind with that for me. And that's in Lamentations chapter 3. And it's when the prophet Jeremiah is, telling the Lord, like, basically all this stuff is going on. My people, we are going through it. And then he remembers, like, therefore, it is the Lord's mercies. It is because of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed. Great is his faithfulness. And for me, that's actually the advice that I would give even right now. That is what I'm holding on to for myself, that this space that I'm in right now, this season that I'm in, it will not last forever, and this is not going to consume me, although this is all I can think of right now. So for me, it was really important to try to get on here, even though I'm late, just to be able to mark this moment in time and declare, like, this is not going to consume me, And then the other piece that I would say is that in every phase of my life, when I've had a broken heart, it has been knowing that God is near. like God is near in the midst of that, in the midst of whatever pain it is that I'm experiencing or that my loved ones are experiencing. But he is near. You know, I believe that's Psalms 147. God is near to the brokenhearted. You know, so I think that's all I want to say. And so yeah, so just reach for him, in the midst of whatever, you know, whatever painful thing that you're in the middle of. As far as more about who I am, I'm the host of the Thanksgivers podcast. So you can follow me on Instagram for more information about when the next episode will be released. And season 1 is actually about gratitude and grief. And one of the themes within that, you know, is just dealing with grievous situations, which grievous situations are situations that break our hearts. So yeah, so that's that.
What's your
Yeah.
social handle on Instagram?
So my social media handle, my Instagram is at the Thanksgivers podcast, and on Twitter, there's at Miss Mia Writes, and also at the Thanksgivers. And yeah, so Instagram is probably the best place to reach me.
Thank you for sharing, Jamia, and
Thank you.
ending us with the word. I definitely resonate, you know, with the feeling consumed. I'm what they call an intercessor, which is someone that stands in the gap for other people. So I can feel very deeply and I sense what other people are feeling and I'll pray. And I think as a result, because of my own sensitivity of hearts, I just really get hit when it comes to emotional trauma or pain. And it just feels like it's gonna take me out. But thankfully, as Jamia said, it doesn't, it hasn't, thank you, Jesus. And it's really been giving it time, knowing that sometimes I have to do a countdown with these breakups where I'm just like, okay, what day am I on? Okay, day 13. Okay, I'm gonna give it till day 20, you know, and just see where I'm at, you know, is the pain less? And I talk about this in my book. So I'm gonna pivot to sharing with you guys or, you know, people who will be seeing this video and sharing with you guys the resources that I have on healing from heartbreak. And then we're gonna share the platform with Secret and she's gonna close us out. So I just want to share with you guys how you can learn more about healing from heartbreak through the first 2 books that I wrote. You can go on my website at NicoleDMiller.com and you can go to books, which shows in the top heading here. And then once you go to books, you'll see how to overcome heartbreak, recovering from misguided love, and by now it'll take you to the Amazon site, and then how to overcome heartbreak stories that heal. So if you guys are in need of other resources, check them out at NicoleDMiller.com. All right, so this has been meaty and full and amazing. It's like a good banquet buffet, you know, of all types of goodies. And so we're going to share a poem from Secret, who's going to take us out.
All right. This poem is called Story Time, by the way. Wind blowing, rattling my windows, Lauryn Hill X Factor playing in the background, crooning sweet innuendos. I now realize I've dated a narcissist. I hate to be the victim, so I close my mouth and allow your lips to kiss them, knowing everything you're gonna say is a lie. You lie so good it's better than the tastiest treat. Your lies wrap me up in a blanket of comfort and safety. You've altered my vision of what I felt love should be. This is a story about how a serial relationshipist fell in habit with a narcissist. All of this time, I've been feeling like I've lost the greatest love I could ever encounter. Telling myself, you fix you, get better, and then go find what love has to offer. I've been writing and singing, dancing and dreaming, and all of this time, the light finally started to click. It's flickering now as I'm up all night fighting all the tears because you took my love and left me drained. I'm feeling 10 steps past stupid, writing a poem about realization that I'm to blame. You see, I've been in relationships since I was 16. I've been dreaming of love since I was a preteen. I paired last names with my first name before I could even figure out if we were the same, on the same path or in the same lane. I moved so fast, we were in love before I brought myself to realize this is just your game. I will bump into a guy, smitten by a simple hi, then discarded quicker than one could spell the word goodbye, and it wasn't on them. I failed to mention I was the girl who moved too fast and wanted everything to be just right. I had a textbook blueprint of what a relationship should be. See, I expected these Y chromosomians to be that one great love all of the girls found in the hood books. It's no mystery. I'm a damsel in distress. You find me, we fall in love, and y'all know the rest. I was in 6th grade when I first read Coldest Winter Ever. From then on, my obsession with relationships would be obscured forever. I'd be in love with you, and then when that didn't last, I find another one to do the same thing that ended me in the same situation. Never learning the lesson. I was a glutton for punishment. Then I met you. Finally, a sigh of relief. Someone who really sees me. Someone who rushes into love just as quickly. Someone who has a messed up perception of what love should be. I found the exact dose of medicine I didn't need. I thought this was love. Y'all, he wined and dined me, took me on trips before he really knew me, bought gifts that he thought would suit me. I was in heaven. This young girl with daddy issues, abandonment, and self-love misuse found the man that finally got me. I fell in love with his family. We made plans on what the future could be. And all of this was happening before we reached month 3. Summer of 2020, after a traumatizing sexual assault, you pursued me. I should have known to run, but you had the gun of love. And it felt so good to finally meet someone who I thought was the same as me, same as the wind blowing to sweep me off my feet. I mean, we talked for hours, y'all, about what and how we wanted this thing to be. Things were going so good. You proposed. I said yes, because I thought we both understood until it all came crashing down and I saw the true you. And I will admit, I didn't at first. I ran back because I thought you were what I deserved. I mean, this serial relationship girl thought she had met the greatest love in the world. You were literally the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. And at the same time, the best thing for my journey. And I would find myself in limbo, battling disgust and gratitude for what this healing did for me. You claimed you only wanted to focus on yourself. But when the facade came down, all the women did too. And I realized this is just what you do. You replaced me so quickly, fell in love, if not quicker, and moved in with her just like you did me. You proposed to me on my birthday, not even a year before our first date. And I'm sure she'll get a ring too. She will love you endlessly, play stepmommy relentlessly, until it comes out that this is just what narcissists do. Oh.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Girl. Oh, well, I think that about sums us up.
That glutton for punishment, man. I think we can all relate to that.
Unfortunately.
That hit me, man. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, ooh.
Thank you.
I need a smoke break on that, and I don't even smoke. I said out loud, I'm sorry.
Thank you for sharing, Secret. Thank you for being vulnerable and entrusting us with your heart.
Thank you. Grateful for the opportunity and awesome opportunity to meet you, ladies.
Well, ladies, we have successfully completed our last rendition of Girl Talk. I'm so excited. I don't know where all this is going. I know at one point Alicia mentioned a podcast, but she's always trying to do the most. So it may turn into a podcast at some point. So stay tuned in 2023. But I've definitely appreciated all of you guys just being willing to dive in on these topics. I know I like to go deep. That could be a little bit uncomfortable, but I just think there's healing when we're vulnerable. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening this year and that you just keep growing and striving into becoming your true authentic self, your highest version of yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back for letting go of toxicity in 2022. I know it ain't easy, but we're here. Okay. All right. So if you would like to revisit this, it'll be on my YouTube page. And if you're on my email list, you'll definitely get the link. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening, ladies. We will talk soon. Oh, and I know Carmela, do you want to shout out your event Friday?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, we're having a Kwanzaa event for our Network and Chill this Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The address is 6001 Lander Haven Drive, Suite A2, 44124. And we'll have different entrepreneurs speaking on a principle of Kwanzaa and what they're doing in the community to instill that principle. So please join us. And we're also looking for vendors. You can reach out to me at antisocialest22@gmail.com.
Yay. And I'll be there speaking on creativity. So come through and support. All right, ladies. Well, enjoy your evening. Thank you guys for showing up. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good
Peace and hair
night.
grease, y'all.
Bye.